Madame Web, a hilarious disaster. I haven't watched the movie yet. I do plan to. I don't know if I'm gonna go to the cinema and watch it or wait for it to come out somewhere streaming at a streaming site so I can watch it there. But apparently, what people are saying, this movie is worse than Morbius, and that, in my opinion, I thought was impossible. Impossible. It was such a funny comment on Instagram while I was scrolling where one person said Morbius was so great they released it twice. That was a hilarious comment. All right, let's see this video by Nerdrotic. Oh my god.
You don't have to know anything about anything.
What?
To watch this movie.
Can you name the 3 Spider-Man Tom Holland movies?
Nope.
Putting on a real superhero costume, not just like one from Amazon, is a pretty
Are you
amazing
kidding me?
I got one question for you. What are those?
Spider-Man, here he comes.
Here we come. Yes.
Premieres on Valentine's Day. Do you have any special plans?
For Valentine's Day, I'm gonna be asleep. Spider-Man, and he's back.
Madam Web has no backstory.
She's gonna be sleeping on premiere day of her own movie.
And so that really gave us a lot
They
of
got the
freedom
buck.
and all the
They got the
And
money.
The other one, the last one is the Goblet of Spider-Man.
I love action movies. I would definitely do more action films for sure.
So, okay, so going into this, I mean, what percent of Marvel movies have
See,
you
only women can deal, like only beautiful, hot women can do stuff like this. Can say stuff so unprofessional about their own business with a polite laugh, acting all innocent, being so like, you know, dumb cute and get with it. If a guy did something like this, he would be called out multiple times as a fake fan, you know, and stuff like that. But with her, like, nah, she's cute, she's beautiful. Doesn't matter that she knows shit about what she's doing.
seen? Let's be real. And this isn't meant as a negative. Like, again, just
4%.
4%. Can you
Which is like 15 minutes of one.
Yeah, I'll do anything.
Oh my god, she actually reminds me of Samra, my bestie. Oh my god, look at her.
Over 973,
I just noticed that.
Wonders in the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. We've gone over a lot of bad films and TV shows on this channel, but rarely
She has
do we have
something, yeah,
this
like
bad.
how she
A
laughed
film
there
that
and
will
looked
go
at her
down in
eyes.
the annals of history is not only the worst movie of 2024, it is the worst comic book film ever made. Madam Web makes Catwoman look like Lawrence of Arabia. Madam
Yo,
Web
people hated on Catwoman. I loved Catwoman. As a child, I don't know if I was a teenager or even a child when I watched Catwoman. It was such an inspiration. I loved superhero movies and I loved like heroic women and stuff like that, even villainous women. But like her body and the way it moves like a cat, and so, and she's so hot. Like this woman was so hot. It still is, but she was so hot in this movie that it stayed in me. I probably now if I watch the movie and I know the plot and the story and I know the language, it would be different. But back then, all I remember are the visuals, and her moving like a cat was. Mwah.
makes Morbius look like Citizen Kane. Madam Web makes The Marvels. Okay, let's not go crazy. It's as bad as The Marvels. Yet, it is also the single best unintentional comedy of the year. Madam Web is directed by one S.J. Clarkson, who was
Celine
most
Dion?
famous for directing a Game of Thrones prequel.
Sorry,
named
she looked like
Blood
Celine
Moon
Dion.
That cost $30 million that will never see the light of day. After watching this monstrosity, I understand why. She shouldn't be allowed within 100 yards of a camera for the rest of her life. As a matter of fact, all cameras and phones should take out a restraining order against her. This is some of the worst directing I've seen in decades,
Oh,
only
shit.
equaled by some of the worst dialogue I've heard in decades, and S.J. Clarkson had something to do with both of them. Madam Web had 4 screenwriters, and I'll remind everyone that just a few months ago, they were on strike for a half a year because they wanted more money. Yet this is the best...
Do you think that's like one of the reasons why it was bad, because of the strike? A lot of these movies and series that had to take a pause in between and go back, and like they were forced, and I don't know if like once you lose the momentum, you lose it forever.
argument for AI. Yes, it's true. We had a lot of trouble finding tickets, and yes, we had to fight off droves of people at the theater
my God, there
as
was
Madam
no
Web
one.
is released on a Wednesday, Valentine's Day, for a 6-day opening weekend. By the way, happy Valentine's Day, Mrs. Nerdrotic. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Disney Marvel decided to announce their Fantastic Four casting today instead of at, say, a con
Oh, that is
or at a Disney
nice.
event.
I like the
and that
casting for
box office
Fantastic Four.
projection for the
I like it.
6-day opening weekend is within the 18 to 28 million range, and that might be a little high. These release weekends keep getting longer. I'm personally holding out for the first 30-day opening weekend. At time of recording on
that is
Metacritic,
there,
Madam
so
Web has a 30 Metascore, generally unfavorable, and a 1.5 user score, overwhelmingly dislike. The IMDb rating is a shockingly high 3.8 out of 10. And on good old Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score is 17%, the verified audience is 66%, and the all audience is at 47%. All those scores are too high. Forgive me for stating the obvious, although that's what we do here on YouTube a lot. It's safe for the corporate shill critics
love
to
the
crap
background
on
of
Madam
his
Web because
house.
it isn't Disney. Unfortunately, the movie's star, Dakota Johnson, wasn't aware of this. As my good friend and internet sleuth Ryan Kinnell pointed out, both Sydney Sweeney and Dakota Johnson tagged Marvel Studios with their Instagram posts. And I agree with Ryan's speculation. Both actresses probably thought this was a Marvel Studios film. And maybe that had something to do with Dakota Johnson firing her agent just days after the trailer dropped. The one and only trailer for this film that was ratioed into oblivion. And if that wasn't bad enough, the review embargo only lifted one day before the film was released.
Like when they went to work and they went to the studio that they were supposed to work in, did they even notice what says on the building? Like, nah! What?
Good sign. So, is it as bad as everyone says?
How do you not know?
It's worse. Well, I put this off long enough. Let's talk about Madam Web because it's... Nah, I'm not going to say Webbin' time. That's what everybody's saying. It's Madam time.
New York City is a whole new level of crazy these days.
The film's titular character, played by Dakota Johnson, is Madam Web, based on a character from the Spider-Man books, who also happens to be in one of my favorite Amazing Spider-Man stories of all time, Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut, written by the great Roger Stern. Madam Web in the comics is a clairvoyant mutant who is old, blind, unable to walk, and hooked to a life support device designed by her husband. And according to the producers
actually
of the film,
would be
doesn't
really
have a
cool.
backstory.
That if they did that, that would be so cool. An old woman that is blindfolded and really badass. Why didn't they go with that?
Madam Web has no backstory, and so that really gave us a lot of freedom and all the
Strong grandma. They have some on
the freedom
Instagram.
to like tell the story.
They can
that
find
felt
some
would
of
be,
those.
You know, right now.
It's an
but
origin
still
story,
set in
too.
2003, so that you could have the song "Toxic."
Okay.
And Dakota
Wait,
Johnson
what?
is just
Because
like
of
the
a
Madam
song?
Web from the comics. She is clairvoyant, but then they made a few changes. She's not old, she's not blind, she's not unable to walk, she never had a husband to make that life support device, and she's not a mutant. Madam Web takes place in her own universe, which is separate from the Spider-Verse, which contains Venom and Morbius. And despite having a direct connection with the Vulture, is separate.
They really love to keep separating those universes just to have like any kind of connection if something fails and they have to continue with whatever they love. You know, like it's such a immediately no faith in the movie. That shows you that they had no faith in that movie whatsoever.
From the Spider-Man Spider-Verse, which is part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least for now.
Did this take place in the larger Spider-Man universe?
It's actually not the Spider-Man universe.
How would I say it? The Spider-Verse?
This is, no, it is a completely standalone world. Well, there are spiders. It's like a little bit Spidey, but it's not in the Spider-Verse.
Standalone.
Standalone.
There are spiders in the studio. I saw a couple of them in the bathroom the other day, you know, that like it was very hard.
Madam Web's world. You don't have to know anything about anything at all to watch this movie.
Madam Web receives her powers in utero when her mom...
So mean.
Mole, 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 mole.
Who was in the depths of the Peruvian jungle looking for a cure for Cassandra's ailment, which is called myasthenia gravis, a neuromuscular junction disease.
Oh my God. Myasthenia gravis is an autoimmune disorder affecting the neuromuscular junction. That was really hard, bro.
Which is interesting because this film looks like it was directed by somebody with a neuromuscular junction disease. Madam Web's mom is betrayed and shot by her assistant Ezekiel. We'll get to him later. Then she is saved by some indigenous Peruvian Mexicans. The indigenous Peruvian Mexican Spider-Men then take her to a spa where she unfortunately passes away but gives birth to Cassandra Webb. Exactly how do the mythological indigenous Peruvian Mexican Spider-Men, who no one has seen because they don't go in the outside world, manage to raise a little girl, get her a birth certificate in Peru, and then somehow enter her in the American foster system? Don't know. And just in case you're worried that the mythological indigenous Peruvian Mexican Spider-Man wouldn't show up later in the film to explain Cassandra her origin, they literally tell the audience and her dying mom.
She will come back when she needs answers, and when she does, I will be here for her.
Fast forward to 2003, where this film takes place, and an all-grown-up Madam Web's powers finally activate when she tries to save a man who is trapped in a car.
Can do
then
this
she
shit.
gets trapped in the car, falls into the drink, and it's Madam and Webbin time. You thought we were going to get a comic book movie where some costume heroes would fight a costume villain. Instead, we got a bunch of women running from a costume villain. And to round out our spider hero,
and he's a man, right? It's a bunch of women running away from a villain that is a man. Right? Am I right?
Heroes who do not become spider women in this movie.
How did I guess that one?
Who have the collective backstory of different variations of being abandoned by their parents. There's Anya Corazon, better known in the comics as Spider-Girl or Araña, who never becomes a Spider-Girl or Araña in this film. Because she's Latina, of course her father isn't around because he was deported. Then there's Maddie Franklin, Spider-Woman, who never becomes a Spider-Woman in this film, who is race swapped from the original character in the comics to satisfy the DEI gods and abandoned by her rich parents to be raised by a nanny. And last but not least is Sydney Sweeney's Julia Cornwall, Spider-Woman, who never becomes a Spider-Woman in this film, who's better known as Julia Carpenter Spider-Woman in the comics, who is the second most popular Spider-Woman to Jessica Drew. She was abandoned after her mother was institutionalized for breaking up with Jessica's father.
Oh, wow. So many men abandoning women. They grow up and now they are running away from other villain men. And this is the second movie about 3 women fighting an evil man in a couple of months.
And yes, all 3 of the actresses playing these Spider-Women are in their 20s playing teenage girls. Why do these teenage girls not need to have parents around for this story? Well, we'll get to that. But first, this brings us to the villain of the story, Ezekiel, a character stolen and absolutely butchered
white man
from the J. Michael Straczynski run.
Interesting. You know what I would like? No, actually, I wouldn't like. But imagine them giving us another gender as a villain, a man. Oh no. Only white men are evil.
Of Amazing Spider-Man. I'm conflicted on JMS. He's a great writer, and I liked most of his Amazing Spider-Man run, and I love B5, but maybe this is a little payback for creating the worst thing to happen to comics prior to 2016 and since Seduction of the Innocent. Writing the story
done with these
that
stories,
erased
man.
Peter Parker and Mary Jane's relationship one more day. Anyway, Ezekiel is having visions that the 3 Spider-Women are going to kill him sometime in the future. And those brief visions...
Don't all men have that vision?
Which are only seconds long, are the only time you see Sydney Sweeney and the other 2 girls I can't bother to remember the name of in their Spider-Woman uniforms. So Ezekiel kills a woman, finds a very loyal assistant who doesn't have a problem hunting down and killing teenage girls, and a really good computer for 2003 to help identify the 3 women that are going to kill him in the future from his visions. Never mind the fact that nobody's questioning the man has visions, and quite frankly, they find him pretty easily.
Barely an inconvenience.
Madam Web also features Mary Parker, who's pregnant with Peter Parker, but no sign of Richard, and Uncle Ben, but no Aunt May. Now, they almost mention her,
But it's a different universe.
but don't, and it's really weird. It's almost like they don't have the rights.
So I kind of met someone.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What's this one saying? Oh, serious.
Between Madam Web's horrific directing,
Why is she still
abysmal
sounding
acting,
like
and
she's
dialogue
acting in
that,
50
quite
Shades
frankly,
of Grey?
retarded, the rest of this too
You know, I'm sexy and I know it. Like she's seducing everyone in this movie. What is going on?
Our film is basically as bland and boring as its plot synopsis. Cassandra Webb is a New York City paramedic who starts to show signs of clairvoyance, Forced to confront revelations about her past, she must protect 3 young women from a mysterious adversary who wants them dead. But if you're forced to see this sober, there is a way to make it even more unintentionally hilarious. Because the best description for Madam Web is that it's a poorly adapted adult film comic adaptation. And when I say poorly adapted, I mean it. It has all the setup without the scenes of adults doing adult things. For example, there are the narrowly legal girls being saved by the older woman and taken into the woods of Central Park.
You don't think this is weird?
After that, the narrowly legal girls are left alone by the older woman in the woods in Central Park. Later on, the adult woman takes the narrowly legal girls home to give them CPR training. And if that wasn't bad enough, the adult woman drops off the narrowly legal girls who she just gave CPR training to at a motel with an adult man and his pregnant sister-in-law.
I lost it. I completely lost it.
PG-13 prawn.
What is the story again?
Describe how bad this film is, and honestly, it would take a Mahler-esque type of video to explain it, which I'm not willing to do because I'm not watching this film ever again.
Yeah.
You can't understand.
I don't even think I'm gonna watch it anymore.
I've seen
only on
in
like
decades.
Disney
you will
Plus
get
or something.
motion sickness from watching Madam Web. Now, I may have been a little insensitive earlier when I insinuated S.J. Clarkson directed Madam Web like she was under the long-term effects of a neuromuscular junction disease. That wouldn't be entirely truthful. A more accurate description would be the cinematographer suffers from palsy and filmed every scene while having a grand mal seizure. The explanation for the 2-hour runtime of essentially a bunch of girls running from a bad guy is explained by Madam Web's ability to see into the future, which allows the directors and producers to pad the film with a lot of repeated scenes. And all those girls you saw in costumes in the trailer, it all came from visions, and it took up a grand total of 1 minute of screen time. And don't get me started on Ezekiel's audio dub from Tahar Rahim, who I don't blame. It was like a poorly dubbed Japanese to English film from the 50s. There was obviously a problem. They were trying to hide him speaking. But when words were being said, often it didn't match what was being spoken on the screen. But nothing will compete with the film's ending. The bad guy is killed by product placement. You heard me right. Ezekiel is crushed to death by the P from a Pepsi Cola sign.
And it's the choice of a new generation.
Because he has one, he must die. Sorry, that's what they think,
into the
not me.
Origin of Madam Web. No, not the powers she got in the beginning of the film, which are essentially an enhanced form of spider sense. No, Cassandra Webb becomes
he died
crippled
because he
and
has
blind,
one.
and she seems
That's
pretty
the,
happy
that's the
about
message.
it. She also gets a costume.
It was like extremely exciting and felt really cool. And, you know, I mean, putting on a real superhero costume, not just like one from Amazon, is a pretty amazing experience.
Split my seats.
What movie is this?
Still?
Wait. What De Niro movie is this?
After all that, I have some questions. Why are indigenous Peruvian Mexican men who possess the power of a spider and exposition just hanging out in the middle of a jungle? Why didn't Central Park burn down when the 3 narrowly legal girls left without putting the fire out?
So the next time you're in the forest, be extra careful, okay?
Surprise, motherfucker.
And someone needs to explain to me how Cassandra Webb, who had an APB out for her because she kidnapped the narrowly legal 3 teenage girls, was able to adopt them at the end of the movie. If Madam Web isn't connected to any Spider-Verse, why in the hell is it taking place in 2003? Oh, we have an answer to that.
Set in 2003 so that you could have the song Toxic.
Why would you try and fail to make Sydney Sweeney ugly? And a bonus question, why in the hell couldn't the women look like this in the film? Why does director S.J. Clarkson keep getting work? Why do the writers of this film, Matt Sazama and Burke Sharples, keep getting jobs? Who thought it was a good idea?
I want to see the picture.
Work. Why do the writers of this film, Matt Sazama...
Brother, almost like Morbius. Almost like Morbius. I haven't even watched Dracula Untold. I haven't watched The Last Witch Hunter. I did watch Gods of Egypt. I didn't think it was that bad. CGI and the story was all over the place, but I still kind of enjoyed it. But Morbius, I watched it and oh my God, I wish I haven't. But yeah.
And Burke Sharples,
they sound like really terrible movies. And somehow they all have a similar thumbnail.
Good idea to put Madam Web in 4,000 theaters, including IMAX.
We have
turning it
Craven.
into
Craven.
IMAXi-pad.
Craven.
And how
Craven.
in the hell did it make
This year,
$6
yeah.
million dollars in its opening day? And the biggest question is just,
Why? Why? Why?
Why?
Why?
but at least we know the answer to a couple of questions. We now know why Disney Marvel released the casting of the Fantastic Four and released an X-Men 97
yeah.
trailer today. And hey, it doesn't look
By
that
the
bad.
way, people say that this is going to be the most woke X-Men ever. Even though other people are saying that it's normal because X-Men were always woke compared to others. So
Bad.
I'm a, gay, adopted, black kid who grew up in the South.
Morph is non-binary. Morph is already confirmed to return to the series. Their character was created especially for the show by blah blah blah, killing the famous. Originally, the role was meant to. Due to its popularity on focus groups, the writer decided to bring them back as a surprise villain. DiMaio specifically changed the pronouns for Morph to they, them in his presentation and expressed that Morph is taking on a new persona with their changeling look. They, them? They, that.
Morph decided to show a little bit of a different side to themselves.
Oh, listen, if it is an alien, I would understand it's they, them. An alien persona, someone who doesn't really belong in a she, he kind of way, I would understand a they, them. But other than that, I'm sorry, I can't. I don't know.
Go with the changeling look.
Well, so much for that.
Stan Lee
You
is
can't
rolling
say
in his
Madam Web
grave.
was any
Aw.
worse than the canceled Batgirl, but you can say Batgirl is the third most profitable superhero film in the last calendar year. Yes, Madam Web is a hilarious disaster. It's also the pinnacle
even
of
see it.
female superhero cinema. Madam Web is going to be a horrendous flop even at its $80 million budget, and quite frankly, that's a good thing because it was released on Valentine's Day and it avoided a national divorce day. Unfortunately for me, I thought I'd multitask and mix a little business with pleasure and take Mrs. Nerdrotic to see Madam Web on Valentine's Day, and according to the poll I just ran, I'm going to be set on fire.
nerdrotic.com.
Okay, that's one
If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't,
Oh, no, I don't want to watch this disaster. I didn't know if I go back, I'm going to hear that intro again. And definitely I'm not going to pause here while talking about the movie. Sorry, I didn't know. Okay, it just happened. Yeah, Batgirl didn't even release, you guys. It was that bad that even they who watched it at the end, like the people who choose to release or not release a movie, they thought it was so bad that they just did not even try to release it and get any money. Imagine how bad that shit was if we have like Morbius and Madame Web now here. Press F5 again. No, I'm not gonna do that. That reloads my page. I'm not gonna even press this button because it reloads my page as well. Tolo, I agree with you about The Boys. This is a good example of transgender changeling in a science fiction or fantasy kind of way, where you do bring these issues, but you don't put them in your face and you don't make the whole series about that. It's just there. And you get a good use out of it. So in this case, in the Boys spin-off, we have this character that is both a man and a woman, and they always can change their looks. Like they look like a man and then they look like a woman. It's not like they look like a woman, but they want to be addressed like a man. They definitely look like a man. So it's called Gen V, yeah, Gen V. It was really good. I like Gen V. And I like that now it's going to be connected again with The Boys. The Boys is one of my favorite anti-hero villain, anti-hero. It's not superhero, it's more like an anti-hero series. Yeah, it's really, really cool. If you force it just backfires. Exactly, I agree with you. Madame Web should have taken notes. I mean, yeah, I think the whole direction was unfortunate. I don't know who asked for this movie and why did it come out like the way it did. The fact that they didn't even connect it with anything else made sense, makes that they didn't even believe in it. Will I watch the movie? Probably. If it's somewhere on a streamable site in the background, I will watch it because I always love superhero stuff, even if I'm looking at like CGI or effects in the background. But they said that they didn't have any of these action sequences only by the end of the movie. Like the whole movie is drama, figuring out who you are, where you come from, what you are, you know, like these things. So I'm like, do I really wanna? Yeah, it's gonna probably be on Disney. I don't know, it's by Sony, so I don't know if it's gonna be on Disney itself. What about superhero novels and books? I do not read superhero novels, books, or watch animations about superheroes as much. I do watch I do read fantasy books a lot. Like I am constantly reading fantasy books, but more about like fairies and stuff, like love stuff and romance. I'm a woman. I'm a sucker for romance. But yeah, also like Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit and Harry Potter or these series. Like hell yeah. Animated movies are good, especially the old DC ones. I have a bunch of these DVDs. I got them from Michael. He sent me from America, like literally wrapped, still wrapped. And I have never watched them. I was thinking one time I'm going to sit down when I have more time and like go from the oldest ones that I possess to the newer ones and like give it a chance. But right now I'm more into anime. I don't know. Anime for me always beats animations, like superhero animations. You're wondering what she's looking at. She's like, this is her face while I'm talking about her movie. You know, she's like, ugh, whatever, woman. All right, let me know what you think.